Welcome to Last in Line podcast, where we are highlighting, showcasing, and spotlighting great leaders of faith who have overcome adversity, cultivated resilience, and served others in a significant capacity. So settle in and be encouraged by this episode of Last in Line podcast. Deuteronomy 30, verse 5, verse 7 through 9, and verse 19 through 20. The Lord your God will bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. He will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. The Lord your God will put all these curses on your enemies, on them who hate you, who persecuted you. You will return and obey the voice of the Lord and obey all his commandments, which I am commanding you today. The Lord your God will make you prosper in every work of your hand, in the offspring of your body, and in the offspring of your livestock, and in the produce of your land for good. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live, that you may love the Lord your God, that you may obey his voice, and that you may cling to him, for he is your life and the length of your days, and that you may dwell in the land that the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give them. I don't know if you've ever planted gardens before, but it takes some serious commitment. It takes faithfulness. It takes diligence. It takes patience. Planting in general is not my speed, not my jam, really. My wife loves it. I don't have the green thumb. My thumbs are the opposite of green. But I get charged with, of course, the heavy lifting, literally, and building whatever apparatus or vessel that we're going to plant and cultivate and harvest from. So I'm part of the process, but I'm not necessarily bought in all the way. Until we start seeing, obviously, the fruit of our labor, and then that's kind of fun. It's kind of like an Easter egg hunt. Every day you go out to pick whatever you think is grown and ready for harvest. But I got to tell you, the preparation leading up to that isn't always the most fun. The building of the beds is not always the most fun. The elevated beds with stone and 30, 40 bags of soil, compost, peat moss, those kinds of things. Not overly fun. I'm not, Lowe's is not my favorite place to go. But I know that it makes her happy. It makes my family happy because she and my son kind of get into it and enjoy it. But I do the work on the front end because I appreciate the yield. I appreciate the reward, the sustenance that we are able to, eat from and harvest from and enjoy that on our dinner table. So, we're a big salsa family. We make our own salsa. And so harvesting the vegetables for that is pretty fun. Really and truly everything in our salsa we were able to harvest. And so it was kind of cool, but I got to tell you, leading up to that, it's not my favorite time of the year. I say all that to say, guys, tonight we're going to talk about rooting where you're planted and appreciating the process because of what it's going to yield, because God's faithful and he does reward those who diligently seek him, the Bible talks about. But I will say we got to know that there's a season of commitment. There's a time to be faithful. There's a time to be patient, just like in the natural, in the literal sense of planting a garden and harvesting and sowing seeds. We as people are not always happy in the soil we're in for the time we're in it. We're not always convinced that where we're planted is where we're supposed to be or where God has us. And why are we not satisfied or committed? Because we don't always get to see the reward and the yield and the harvest when we think we deserve to see it. So I'm here to tell you tonight, there might be a place that you're planted right now that you don't necessarily agree with or aren't necessarily committed to, but there's something there for you. And I'm telling you, God will not reward you. He will not yield that harvest that you might be looking for and that ultimate plan. He won't thrust you into that calling completely if you're not bought in and faithful to where he has you planted right now. If you don't get rooted where you are right now, there won't necessarily be a harvest. I can tell you, obviously, if my plants and vegetables don't take root, if they're not in good soil, if there's not adequate environment and climate to generate that yield and that harvest, they will not provide fruit. So that's the same for us. If we don't commit and aren't aware of the soil, aren't cultivating the soil, aren't fertilizing the soil and watering and nurturing the soil, we absolutely will not get rooted. So let me just go into some of this. It might be all over the map, and I know you're accustomed to that with me. I'm usually could be a grease fire on occasion when it comes to my outlines, but I will say, if you're not rooted where you're planted, you probably won't see the fruit of your harvest. So 3 tips for blooming in this season, I guess, is what we'll do with this. But some of the preventatives of rooting and some of the Roundup, obviously, you know what Roundup is. You spray it, kills weeds. But some of the Roundup that sort of kills our rooting process, the root killer of whatever season we're in and whatever soil we're planted in that moment, whether it's your job, your particular season of raising kids. Maybe you feel like it's a desert. Maybe you feel like there's no, light at the end of the tunnel with some of your kids and what they're going through. Maybe they're in a situation in school or relationships that you're feeling like is a hard place to be and help navigate them through. Your job, not everybody feels like their job is right up their alley where they're supposed to be for a time such as this and all that they've been called to do. But those are stepping stones. Those are pathways to the greatness that is your end destination, really, in that particular role. We don't always see it, right? We can't see the forest because of the trees because we're too locked in, too laser focused to immediate gratification and whatever that immediate thing and right in our front of our face. And we don't always know. Obviously, if I'm planting a crop, I'm not going to see fruit from it immediately. And I've got to trust the process, and I've got to trust that I've got it planted in the right soil and for the right time of year and the right environment. Just like God's got you in the right environment, even though he never said it'd be an easy environment or a smooth environment, but it might be the right environment to grow you the way you need to grow, to root you the way you need to be rooted, to cultivate and foster some things down inside you that might need some growth for that longer duration of whatever purpose and mission you're on. So it could be for a greater good down the road of that purpose that you have. But you got to maybe figure some things out first within you. He's not going to bless you with something greater than what you have if you can't be faithful with what you got now. So some of the things that are root Roundup for us, some of the killers are going to be restlessness, of course. Anytime we're getting discontented, restless, agitated spiritually, if we can't get comfortable and at peace in a particular place because we're too focused on what we think we're entitled to, that maybe we haven't proven our worth and our ability to justify that, but we've in our mind convinced ourselves that should be ours and we actually should be further down the road than we are. Okay, we deserve that D word I hate so much. And then this unfulfillment, we get unfulfilled when we can't find a place of purpose in that spot that he's got us planted in. And when we can't go to work every day, we can't engage in a relationship every day, when we can't actually dive into some particular mission that's going to be for the betterment of us spiritually, physically, mentally, psychologically, relationally, if we can't invest in that, then we get unfulfilled because we feel like we can't ever get traction. And every time we turn around, something's going against us. Something is actually counterproductive to what we think our mission should be. And there's no return on that, whatever investment, because even if it's a shallow investment, and let me tell you, when your heart's not in it and you're not faithful to where you're planted and you're not taking root, it's a shallow investment. You haven't bought in and committed. So what do you expect in return? You got to You got to bet big to win big, right? You got to bet on yourself big. You got to invest big in order to see that big return, but you're never going to do it because you're unfulfilled, you're discontented, and you're restless. Why? Because you haven't bought in that God has you there for a reason, and you don't trust the guy that's drawing up the plays. You don't trust the guy with the X's and O's and the chalkboard. You don't trust God and his plan for you. So you think it's all about your plan and our timing. It's all about our mission, our goal, our initiative, our agenda, and our timing. Yes, I would love to be able to harvest a crop a week after we plant it. I'm just happy if it's still alive in a week after we plant it. Especially in South Texas, when it starts to get hot, I'm just happy stuff isn't brown. If I go out and it's green still, I'm happy. We've won. Okay. We're stacking small wins, guys. But 4 weeks, 6 weeks down the road, we start seeing little signs, little glimmers of hope, little flowers, little buds, little, small little pieces of vegetable that are not ripe yet, but you just see it coming. And then it starts to just multiply exponentially, all because of the groundwork we laid, all because of that process on the front end that I didn't want to do when we created the bed and created the environment with the soil, the rich soil, and then we tended to the crop and we're faithful, just like we should be in our job. I've been in numerous jobs where I've felt, okay, I've plateaued. All right. I'm great out of the gate. 2 or 3 years later, I'm like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. Or I've plateaued. This is it. This is as good as it's going to get. I've maxed out. That's not being faithful because I'm leaving it up to myself and my agenda, my timing. Somebody out there listening to this is doing the same thing. You're getting antsy. You're getting restless. You're getting discontented because you think you've accomplished all you can do. You've hit the ceiling. You've cultivated all the relationships you can cultivate. So now your time to move on because you think the grass is greener on the other side. Guess what? That grass needs to be tended to and watered and stewarded over, just like the grass you're in now that you think you've outgrown. So that's for somebody. But those are the preventatives. Those are the killers. That's the roundup for our rooting process. Those are the three: the restlessness, the discontentment, and the unfulfilled. Okay. So what we have to do to actually root where we're planted. I've said some of it right now. You probably know what some of it is, but it doesn't always feel great. It doesn't always feel like we're in that sweet spot, okay? You feel like you've got to see immediate gratification to feel like you're faithful to the process, feel like the process is worth trusting. But that's not always the case. You don't always see fruit yet. So you could be rooted somewhere for a growing season within yourself. So you got to be committed to the season of sowing. Okay. There's a reaping, and we all love the reaping. Okay. Every athlete loves playing in the championship game, loves holding the trophy, loves the press conference after the win. But not every athlete likes preseason. Not every athlete likes practice. Not every athlete likes the training room. Not every athlete likes the rehab to take care of themselves, their nutrition. Not every athlete likes the behind the scenes, the due diligence it takes, the commitment and faithfulness to the process to be able to be in that press conference talking about the championship they just won. You and I have to commit to the season of sowing. We got to be casting seeds. We got to be casting it into the good soil. We got to be tending the soil, creating that good. We're part of the soil. Okay. We can choose the soil. If you're not rooting, it's because you're either planting yourself in the wrong soil with the relationships or with coworkers, or financially you're not stewarding the way you should, so you're not seeing a return. We can choose the soil. Okay, I'm not saying you just jump ship at your job and go to a different flower bed to plant yourself, but you can choose the soil within that environment. And you can also for sure choose how you engage in that soil, how you cultivate, and how you turn the soil, how you fertilize and foster room for growth. Because ultimately, if you're the soil too, you're requiring growth in yourself, and you got to do the work. Okay, you got to take the knowledge, you got to invest in the input that it takes for you to grow and get better and create more skill sets, and then become sharper. And then you're all of a sudden you're hitting on all cylinders, firing on all cylinders, and then that soil starts to look a little better, doesn't it? Because those roots start to take shape and start to get deeper. And then all of a sudden it doesn't look as bad as you thought it looked, right? Why? Because you invested. You said, okay, I'm not going to just rot. I'm not going to just sit here and get stagnant. I'm going to do something about where I am. I'm going to make the environment better than the way I found it. I'm going to change the environment. It's not going to change me. That's committing to a season of sowing. The seed that you plant, the soil that you choose, and the stance you take while you're in that season. That stance of gratitude, that stance of faithful stewardship, that stance of humility, the stance of being open, and that kind of goes with humility, but open to learn, open to see, keeping the eyes open down the field to see opportunities that you can walk in. Okay, not ducking your head, closing your eyes, and feeling sorry for yourself that you've tapped out and you've maxed out and peaked in that particular role. That's how you don't root. That's where your leaves start to wither and turn. Okay. It's time to be rooted where we're planted, and it's time to prosper. Okay. In that season of sowing. So then you go to, we got to understand the season for harvesting too. We got to know when that is. That's the hardest part. It starts to become evident after you've done the front end work. When we're planting crops, we start to notice when it's time because we've gotten accustomed to what that looks like, how it feels, okay, the time period that passes. But we never could have got there had we not dug the right trench, planted in the right soil, spaced the plants the right amount apart in the right climate with the right watering and nurturing. Had we not done it, we never would have got to the point where we could see when the timing was right for the harvest. So we never would have known had we not done the front end work. So you got to get out in front of it. That's what I talked about with the season of sowing. But then the season of harvest is all about timing. You can't pick that stuff too soon or it's no good. I'm not picking tomatoes when they're green. You and I both know, unless you're a big fried green tomato guy. And I'm not. I'm a big salsa guy. So I want big, red, juicy, firm but soft tomatoes. Okay. So you guys in your job, you've got to know when the time is right. Yes, maybe the season closes the door on that particular job. And maybe there's a door opening in another company, another role, maybe your own business. I don't know. Maybe a door's opening for you to write a book, start a podcast. I don't know. But you've got to do the front end work in order to understand what the harvest looks like. And so you've got to know the right timing. You've got to get godly counsel around you. You've got to bounce it off people. You can't just jump both feet head first into something that you feel like you are trying out on a whim. You had some pizza the night before, you got some indigestion, and it seems like a good idea, so let's just jump. That's not it. That's wrong timing. That's not seeking God. That's not seeking godly counsel. You got to get some people in on the deal with you. But you got to feel God nudging as well. And that's where we always go back to getting closer to him, getting in the word. When you read the word, your faith increases. Okay. Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. And so you read it, you internalize it, you conceptualize it, you live it, breathe it, and then you get closer to him in the process. And then you start to recognize his voice. If when my dad and I would be out fishing and it'd be dark some mornings when we'd be getting the boat ready and it'd be 4:00 in the morning and I couldn't see anything, and he'd be talking to me from around the back of the boat and I'd be in the front trying to unhook and do all these things. But I recognized his voice, right? Because I knew him. We were close. We had a relationship. So I knew what to listen for. I knew that was familiar. I knew that I could trust it. So if you're close to your Father, your Heavenly Father, you'll know his voice. You'll read his word. You'll get what he's trying to tell you. That tap on the shoulder comes after the timing. So you got to know the right timing. Then you'll know the tap on the shoulder. Then you'll feel that nudge. Okay. And then that thrust into whatever that next mission is or purpose is for you. Maybe it's your overarching purpose doesn't change, but the vessel and the vehicle by which you accomplish that and pursue it can change, can look different, can involve different people. It can involve different environments. So let's listen. If you're in a job that you're not happy with, great. I get it. I've been there, but find out why you're not happy with it. Could there be a situation that's toxic that you need out of? Of course. Could there be a situation where your boss just has it in for you and your coworkers are sabotaging you every time you turn around? Yes, could be. That's the worst case scenario. And I don't think very many people are in that situation. If you are, pray about it, get people involved again. Same process, doesn't change. Get people involved, help them counsel you through that, and then look for other opportunities. And then, of course, remove yourself. But most of the time, 90% in my situation, when I've been anxious, agitated, restless, discontented, unfulfilled, it's been because I have had wrong expectations. I've had my own agenda, my own timing, my own plan. Okay. God's ways are higher than mine. Okay. He knows more than I. So I got to trust that, not my plan, not my timing. Okay. So I'm encouraging you, feel that tap on the shoulder, know when the timing's right, but understand too the expectation of where you are. Like, it might be all on you. There's some things you can do different. There's some things you need to be able to trust the process in. You need to understand the season of sowing, like I talked about, seed, soil, and stance. Your stance in there, your heart, okay, condition, humility, gratitude. You got to get that right. Then everything starts to become clear, and you start to have that ignite that purpose again and refine that vision again for your particular season you're in. But then understand that season of harvest, and it's all about timing, and it's all about God's tap on the shoulder. Once you get close to him and recognize his voice, recognize the nudge, recognize him thrusting in you in that direction, he starts to open doors where people start coming in your life, speaking to you about things. They start laying things on your heart that you think, that might be God. I'm going to take that lead, that direction over here, because I hadn't had that and I have a peace about it. So you'll start to understand what that's like, and you'll start to understand the difference between your plan and your agenda and your timing and God's timing, which is what we all want. We all want to follow in that. So guys, root where you're planted, but do the work on the front end. There's 3 tips for blooming in this season, okay? Understand the root killer. We went over that. The Roundup, okay? The weed killer. You don't sabotage your rooting in the soil that you're in, okay? Commit to the season. Number 2, commit to the season of sowing, and then understand the season of harvest. Guys, look inward, make adjustments in yourself. Refine the process within yourself. Trust the process. Seek God. Get to know his voice. Follow his lead. And you will root where you're planted. And then he will absolutely yield a fruitful harvest and thrust you into something bigger and better. With that, be blessed.